goal this year, this cycle, was to make the department, get it set up, and now we're going to fund it to really do the work. So it'll all be coming from you. The projects will be your projects. All the work will be done here in Mali. Of course, there's going to be a lot of assistance from the South Africans and from the Americans, and so that will continue, but it's going to be driven from here. So that's all great. So before we get into the talk by Dr. Hall and the discussion here, Dr. Mustafa has a few words too.
So I think we don't have anything to add because we think add everything. So good morning everybody, good afternoon. So it's a pleasure to have all of you again here. So people who were here for the last 2 days, and we have some new faces coming to join us for this joint workshop. It's a joint workshop from our 2 D43s. We have one D43 on cancer associated with infection, which is running under the Prof Center in Hospital. And the second D43 is building next generation of researcher in HIV and TB in Mali. We call B-Next-Gen. It's a really joint workshop. Why it is important to have this workshop here? Because we have been trained by our mentors like Prof since 20 years now, and we have been able to apply for grants and win grants. If we don't make training on young generation, we cannot have, and we cannot extend this kind of training grant and research grant. This is why it's really important for all of you to be very serious and attend this and ask more questions, inspire you, and try to really focus on this kind of work. So we invited one of our very talented and brilliant Professor Hôtel. She speaks French, but she decided the workshop will be in English, because as Rob used to say, if you want to eat American money, you have to speak English. So you all need to practice your English, and you want to do that. So I want especially to thank all our collaborators. We have a director of the National School of Engineering who is here, and he has been really supportive for that, to this grant at this level. And also I want to speak some things to the former rector, who has been really supportive as Professor Diallo is here in the room. Thank you, Prof, for joining us. And all of you, different professors, and all these professors can give their insights, their input for the young generation here, or young researchers to give their feedback. So as Rob said, we can start now. So it will be 3 hours, and feel free to ask a question. It's really important for you to understand. So it will be in English. There is no translation. Please make effort to understand. Thank you so much. Thank you. So again, you have the floor.
Thank you. Moi, je vais quand même commencer par dire bonjour à tout le monde. Je regrette que je n'ai pas pu venir au Mali cette fois-ci, mais vraiment, c'est un grand plaisir pour moi de présenter pour vous ce matin. Effectivement, je vais présenter en anglais, mais je vais parler lentement et clairement pour que tout le monde puisse comprendre. Et si quelqu'un ne comprend pas vraiment, faites-moi signe et je traduirai pour vous. To begin with, I really would like to reinforce the comments made by Professor Murphy and Professor Azalaï, in that these 2 D43s already have had many connections. The B-Next-Gen obviously created this department of biomedical engineering, but the infection associated cancer D43 actually has already been developing within this program some devices for point-of-care testing for some cancers, breast cancer, other infectious diseases. So this, to me, is a remarkable coming together of these two programs, how they will serve each other to really develop the tools, the devices, the assays that you need in West Africa in particular. We heard yesterday, I believe, a presentation about HPV, where there are several HPV high-risk subtypes that are not covered by the HPV vaccine that has been developed in the West. So this is a perfect example of why so much of this work needs to be done now. So this morning, I want to talk about sort of academic medicine. What does it mean to be in an academic medical university? Your key activities are, obviously for many of you, clinical activities. There are also research activities. Many of you are involved in teaching, educational activities, and then there are what we call institutional activities, meaning sitting on committees for promotion, sitting on the IRB, etc. This morning, because these are training grants, I'm going to talk to you about how to think about your research activities if you are an early career faculty, someone who has just finished your training and is trying to decide what is going to be the focus of your research. So of course, research activities often also are interfaced with your educational activities. They are often need to be involved with the institutional goals of your institution, and they also frequently are related to your clinical activities. I personally began my research because of the type of clinical care that I was providing. In my case, at the very beginning of my clinical activities, I worked in New York City. I became aware, I was a pediatrician in an emergency department in a hospital. I became aware that children were coming into the emergency department and were being turned away because they didn't have health insurance and being sent to a public hospital. And my first activities all focused on health insurance coverage for children. So I assume for many of you, your initial interest in research may emerge from some of your clinical activities. So the agenda that I'd like to cover quickly, I don't have a lot of slides. I have 15 slides maximum. Start a conversation, and please feel free to interrupt me. I'm going to talk a little bit about how you should start to try and decide on your research career goals. What sorts of things do you need to do to be successful and have a successful research career? Time and effort management to try and achieve your goals. I know for many of you in Mali, you are very burdened with many activities, many demands on your time. I would say that it's not that different, to be honest with you, for researchers in the United States. I think it's pretty generally are quite burdened. And then successful navigation of an. So determining your research career goals. So what are your research career goals? You think about it yourself. I'm going to pause for a minute and all of you sort of think, well, geez, what would I like to do? What am I passionate about? And then sorts of things do I need to do in order to be successful? As Dr. Murphy's, after this presentation, there'll be a nice discussion with some very successful Malian researchers. And what do you really care about? What is your passion? And I'm going to submit that you should start first with this question. What do you really care about? What are you really passionate about? And then you should think about, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? So what are the strengths that I can bring to this topic? What are perhaps the things that I'm not as good at on this topic? And then lastly, what research opportunities are available to me currently within your institution, within the country, and as Dr. Murphy alluded to, within this very changing research funding environment. We really don't know yet what will happen with respect to the NIH, with respect to particularly funding for countries and for researchers in a country such as Mali. But I would submit to you, and I think Dr. Murphy, I'll be curious if I don't think you should change your thought process yet. We don't know enough. So I would still suggest that you really think about what topic really grabs you. What do you really want to work on? And the reason I say this to you is because to be successful as a researcher, to get external funding is such hard work, and particularly for you who are often dividing your time between many different activities. You have, if you're a clinician scientist, you have clinical activities. If you are involved in a lot of educational activities, you have to teach courses, you have to grade papers, you have to speak with students, and then you have the research. And so in order to be successful, you have to really care about the topic. You've got to pick something that you are really interested in. So what are your research career goals? So this is a graphic that I took. I don't know if I put the reference. They basically say you want to think about who you are, what do you care about, what are your values, understanding and developing emotional intelligence. I put this in the basket where, what are the things that you are really good at and what are the things that perhaps you need help with? And you want to think, in a few years, where would I like to be? You could even pick someone, a researcher amongst your colleagues, somebody who you would like to be like them. You would like to be doing activities like they are doing. So I just picked some ideas. I don't know, these are obviously, I know some of you in Mali. I have heard presentations by some of you. We know, for example, for HIV and TB, there's really a need for better point of care testing, particularly for TB, particularly in patients with HIV because of the increased risk for these patients. We know that there's an interest in GI cancer in West Africa and the role of H. pylori. Obviously, I personally am very involved in work to try and detect early detection of women at risk for cervical cancer. One area that we know has been pursued by some of you has been the role of epigenetics, and can we develop more targeted testing? And then I have worked with Geneba Fofana and introduced hepatitis B, and really implementing testing, particularly in pregnant women, to reduce the transmission. But these are just some examples that I have heard of. I want all of you to be thinking in this moment so that when the discussion comes, we can hear from some of you what are topics that you believe are of great importance and of interest to you. So think about your strengths. So typically, if you're somebody who works clinically, you really should be trying to figure out a way to combine your clinical activities with your research activities. So I know Dr. Murphy, for example, is an infectious disease expert, and he has obviously focused on research, really focusing on infectious diseases. He was a very early investigator with regard to HIV, and he has continued research in that arena. Professor Maiga, for example, runs a laboratory, and he is very interested and has continued all of his research related to diagnostic testing and ways to better detect diseases or to monitor treatment of conditions. I know that some of you are very engaged in your community, and so you really want to leverage local advocacy groups, for example, to promote better health, to promote better prevention of certain conditions, to promote better awareness among the population. I know that there are, in some instances, the population, for example, in the work that we are doing on cervical cancer, among the general population, there is a lack of awareness of the importance of screening and how it can help to prevent disease. The other example would be elevated blood pressure, which is not an infectious disease, but it's an example that both in the West, in developed countries, and equally in countries like Mali, because it is a silent condition, people don't feel ill, there's a real lack of awareness of the importance of treating this condition. Some of you may have trained with some very good researchers, and you really would like to develop more collaborations and leverage the strengths of an existing research team. That's a good strategy, I would say. The key issue in that case is to make sure that you can identify your own research, that it's not always so closely linked to perhaps an existing research team or a senior researcher. And then some of you, I presume, have just finished your PhD on a given topic, and you really need to be thinking, what is the next piece of information? What's the next gap in knowledge that I need to pursue? And here I'm going to give you just one note of caution. We have seen sometimes young investigators want to reproduce, for example, a study that has been done perhaps in another part of Africa or even in a Western country, and because you have not done it in West Africa or in Mali, you think that it would be useful to reproduce the study. Be careful, because it is not enough to just reproduce the study in Mali. It has not been done in, let's say, an epidemiology. What really matters, it may be important to reproduce it, but you need to be sure that you are going to generate new knowledge, something new. For example, I talk about epigenetics, that you discover some new information about a unique epigenetic profile or a unique, for example, HPV, unique subtypes of HPV, high-risk HPV, that are more prevalent in West Africa than in other countries. So that is something to be very careful about. What are your weaknesses? So I'm giving you some ideas. I don't know anybody else. I'm using USTTB as co, but some of you may be from other institutions, you may be from other countries. You don't know anybody who's doing any work on the topic that you're interested in. That's tough, and you need to think about whether or not you can find mentors on your topic. In prior presentations, I have talked about mentorship, particularly in the institutions of higher education. And I presume they're the name other West African countries. One of the problems you face is there are relatively few senior faculty who can mentor early career faculty, and they are very busy. And we've talked about this in your institutions. And what I have suggested, and I see Jen Badavitao is on this call. She is someone who has been successful as a researcher. She's emerging, she's beyond being an early career investigator, and she knows how important it is for her in turn to begin to some of the young faculty. And I think has been a shift in your countries with younger investigators also stepping up to mentor. I'm too busy clinically to find any time to do research. This is something we encounter here in the United States. It's a huge problem for people who want to do research. I don't really have a good solution for this. You just have to carve out the time. Don't have any idea how to get funds to pay for the assays that I need for my project. So this is where you need more senior who know of small foundations, who know of internal grants. Obviously, these D43s offer some funding for these small grants to help you with your research. I know that I need to write grants for funding, but I really have never done anything like that. So you really need to try and find people who have experience. And there are now a number of faculty at USTTB who have been successful in preparing these grants. You need to reach out to them, but one factor, reach out and give them enough time. It's not appropriate to be coming to them 1 month before your grant is due. They need months in order to really be able to help you. This is true. I insist on this even with early career faculty here in the United States. I cannot help you if you do not come to me early enough so that we have time to continually refine your proposal. I feel like I need to find a more experienced researcher to help me, but I don't know if it's okay to ask for good faculty. Like anything in life, if you don't ask, you don't get. What's the biggest risk? You should ask. They may say no, but then you can ask them if they can recommend someone else. So I really encourage you, if you do know a senior faculty member who has an interest in your topic, set up a meeting, go and meet with them. Now, a piece of advice, if you go and meet with them, go with clear ideas. Even prepare something that you send to them in advance so that they can look it over. Prepare a 1-page. Identify the topic that you're interested in. Explain why you think it's an important. Even explain why you think there's a gap in knowledge, that there's a need for research on this topic. Do your homework and look for some potential funding sources that you might be able to apply to. Don't just go to meet with somebody, take up their time, and not come very concrete developed ideas. This is something that even I don't appreciate. When somebody comes to me talking in general, I much prefer risking a piece of paper, a Word document, or a few slides, giving me some background information, telling me what is important, what is significant. So here are some opportunities. Mentored research awards, collaborators with D43 US and NU and USTTB faculty. There have been a number of degrees you will see in the presentations coming up for Next-Gen in the next 2 days. There have been a lot of people who have gotten training. And obviously there's this new wonderful collaboration with the National School of Engineering, with their faculty, and some of these BMEs. They have begun the first year of BME students. These are students who are going to be looking for collaborations with those of you who are working in academic medicine. So please look for them, talk to the faculty, and find the students and see if you can begin to collaborate with them. And with respect to infection-associated cancer, there are also mentored research awards. There is a whole array of faculty that you can reach out to. And then there are the trainees and students at USTTB. Again, there have been a lot of new trainees with new skills that you for sure, they themselves are going to be looking for collaboration. So if you're a little more senior and you're looking for an epidemiologist, probably one of these epidemiologists is anxious with you. They too are looking for opportunities. So just to give you sort of the cycle of life, but the cycle of a research career or developing your research goals, find your topic of interest. You must think carefully and you must defend the importance or the significance of your topic. And you must defend why this is something that needs to be research that needs to be conducted either in Mali or in West Africa. We have started to really try to encompass our research projects in broader than just Mali. One of the, I think one of the great outcomes of these D43 training awards for USTTB is that USTTB has become an institution, is now recognized in West Africa as offering a lot of opportunities for research training. And students now are coming from many diverse countries to UST, and these annual meetings. Think about your strengths. You don't want to go down a path. If you're not a laboratory rat, don't be thinking about research in the laboratory. If you are somebody who doesn't like community engagement, don't go down the path having to work with community advocacy groups. So think about what your strengths are, where you are comfortable, and where you can be successful. Obviously, mentors are essential. I think that you'll hear from the panel a little bit later that mentorship is such a critical feature. Research is difficult, it's complex, and you need guidance. And then lastly, these opportunities, whether it's funding opportunities or whether it's ability to collaborate with other institutions, networking, these are things to consider. I took this from, and I apologize, I'll have to put the references, but they really said, here's the plan for success. There are 4 phases. They wrote this out in a work plan. I'm not sure that it can all be accomplished in 1 year, but it gives you an idea of some of the first steps, and I'll go through them in a little more depth. So phase 1 is preparation, and this is a new transition from a trainee to an independent researcher. I myself had difficulty transitioning. I at the University of Chercheurs in Rochester, New York, and then I stayed on as a faculty member. And it was quite difficult for me to distinguish myself as a faculty member and no longer a trainee with respect to my mentors. This is not an uncommon problem. But you need to start to step out of your comfort zone. You need to start out from underneath the protection of your mentor. You have to step up, look for opportunities to lead. So in my case, for example, I did it on the clinical front initially. I worked in a clinic, and we were seeing a number of children who had been abused, really have any skills, and so I went and got specialized training, and I stood up a specialized clinic, and then I started doing research on the topic. So these are some of the ways you step up and you look for something that will help everybody. Sometimes you need to break your ties with your former mentors and collaborators. Sometimes in order to, you need to look for new collaborators, new mentors. I know that can be difficult, particularly in some of your institutions where there are not so many opportunities, not so many mentors available to you, but if necessary. But I suggest to you in that case, have a conversation with your mentor. Explain why you need to seek new mentorship. Don't just go off and do it and break the relationship without an explanation. Building new collaborations, network, a research team, this is really important. I cannot tell you how helpful it is, even just a half a day of a research assistant or a research coordinator, somebody who keeps your project going, keeps doing some of the paperwork for you while you are busy fulfilling your other obligations, can be very helpful. I initially got a $10,000 grant, and I spent all the money on a research assistant because I was still doing a lot of clinical work when I got started. Now, teamwork requires trust. You really need to assess if you're going to work with a new mentor. You need to talk to some of the mentor's mentees, and you need to assess the fairness, the trust, the transparency. These are very important features for a team to function well. And then you're all under pressure. And many times we respond to the things that are coming at us. Oh, I've got to finish this. Oh, somebody sent me an email, I've got to do this. Stop, take a step back, particularly for early career faculty. Think about the things that need to happen for you to be successful. And you may have to say no to other activities that people are asking you to complete. You do need to learn how to say no to some things that people want you to do. Of course, there are pressures. There are pressures from senior faculty. There are pressures from your university. I understand that. But you can explain why maybe for the next 6 months, I am not going to teach 2 classes a quarter because I need to write for a grant to submit in order to get funding. Have a discussion with your supervisor, have a discussion with your mentor. Learning new research processes. Many of you have not yet probably submitted IRBs or protocols. You have to learn ERA Commons. You have to get your own accreditation on ERA Commons. I do not want you to underestimate the importance of your institution's culture. This is probably one of the most important features, and many early career faculty, perhaps not so much at your institutions because many of you train in the institution where you are going to now become a faculty member. But if you have trained somewhere else and you are new to the institution, please be very careful. Move carefully and slowly when you arrive. Listen, watch, understand the hierarchy, understand the culture, understand the structure, understand who has decision-making authority, who do you need to go through. Because this is not an uncommon problem when someone comes in and they don't pay enough attention to the organization's underlying culture. And the last item for this preparation phase is moving at the right pace. If you move too fast, you then sometimes can break things and ruin your opportunities. If you go too slowly, you can miss opportunities. This is particularly true for grant funding deadlines. If you wait too long, you miss the opportunities, and they come and go quickly. You are all, I know, working very hard, but you have to set yourself some achievable goals, and I would say for many of you whom I've worked with, probably you don't leave yourself enough time, particularly for research grant preparation. You are not leaving yourself enough time to write fundable grants. High quality, well-written, solid grant applications, even if it's a smaller grant. And leaving yourself enough time, starting early enough so that we can revise and revise and revise. And then lastly, it is the NIH really encourages early career investigators, particularly anyone who has had a K award, to prepare an independent development plan. So it's just a document where you list all of your activities, your teaching activities, your research activities, your clinical activities, and you set yourself some goals for each of your activities, and then you go back periodically and you review what you have achieved, what you have not been able to achieve. You spend the time to try and understand why you haven't achieved them. These are things that you really should do, particularly early career. SMART goals. Start with the end in mind, write out some one-year goals, be very specific. So this is the sort of thing that I think you need to bring when you go and talk to a mentor. Make sure your goals are measurable. Think about specific things that you need to accomplish and set a timeline for yourself. Set realistic goals. Don't start out by writing an R01 grant. You have to write some small grants first to gain experience. Make sure that your goals are aligned with broader objectives, with your values, and with the goals of funding agencies. You need to be well aligned. You can't send in proposals that are not well aligned, and establish a timeline.
Phase 2 is the launch, so you want to have to step up and take on leadership of certain activities. Try and get something where you get an early win, something that you do that you get recognized for. You could start a journal club and get people to come and look at journals and discuss papers around the topic that interests you. There are lots of different things that build your credibility, and it starts to identify you as somebody who's leading and bring people together, build trust, build respect, start to build a team. Manage your priorities. I already said you have to do the things that matter for your career goals, to reach your career goals, those SMART goals, reassess them all the time, and reflect on what you are doing. What did you love doing? What was easy? What was hard? What things were successful, were well received? What sorts of things did you do and then nobody recognized? Ask for feedback. Feedback never hurts. It can be hard to receive, but it's a good thing to ask for. And then consolidation. Don't stop asking for feedback. You don't want praise or just criticism. You want constructive feedback. People need to give you specific, actionable things that you can do to improve. Remember, and this is very true for a research career, you have to be tough. You have to be resilient. Not everything that doesn't work out is bad. Listen carefully when you talk to your mentors or when you talk to a program officer. Listen carefully. If they don't identify a fatal flaw, something fundamentally wrong with your research idea, keep going. Go back in, go back in. Many philosophers have said, it's not about failure, it's about what you do. If you fail, how quickly do you get back up and try again? Again, oops, there's a typo here, be resourceful. Keep thinking, looking around for collaborators, even internationally, look for your collaborators, and stay very connected with your team. Talk to them, tell them what you're thinking, tell them what your challenges are. You'd be surprised sometimes how people can help you. There might be somebody on your research team who can help you with some software or some analysis that you had no idea that they had before. So talk to them. Momentum, build on previous success. As you start to have success though, don't forget that sometimes you may have to start to deviate. The world around you, research is going on. You may see that somebody else has done research on your topic and they're further ahead. And so now you need to change your path and look for a new topic of importance. You can't stay always on the same topic. If you ask the senior faculty during the discussion later this morning, you're going to hear how they evolved over time, over the 20 years, 25, 30 years of their career. I myself have had many different research topics. Don't back away from challenges. This is really important. Sometimes you have to change your mentor routine. Sometimes, as I said, you have to adapt your research topic and even change your plans. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jane. That really set the stage for the rest of the session today. Thank you very much for your comments and your presentation. And I do want to highlight one thing that you said. Even though there's a little bit of unsettlement right now in the United States, we are continuing on. We are not stopping and just waiting for something to happen to us. We've been given absolutely no information that would lead one to think that these programs are going to be discontinued or stopped. The NIH is very different from the other agencies that have had much more difficulty. There has always been long bipartisan support from both of the political parties in the United States to support the NIH. So we hope that remains in place. That's what we're planning on. We've also been told by the leadership of our university to just en marche, continue on, and that's exactly what we're doing, so thank you. So now, we're going to have a little panel. Huh? Yeah, okay. but we're gonna ask them questions. So, we talked about a couple of awards here. So there's a thing called Career Development Award that is an NIH term also. And the name of that award that applies to non-US residents, which would be most of the people in the room here, is a K-43. So Mali has two awardees for the K-43, Geneva Davital, who I think is online. Yes, you were there. I think you're in Baltimore, right? And Geneva Bofana. So Geneva, can you come? You're going to come up to this table up here in the front. We also have, there's the Career Development Award. It's a 5-year award where the person stays here, but they have a lot of mentoring back and forth in the United States and locally. They get a $30,000 research budget, and they get to travel and go to meetings, and well, I'll let Geneva tell you about it. Either one of the Genevas. The other one is the Launch Award, which is a 1-year award with a $15,000 research budget. Also is based here with mentoring. It's a shorter version of the K-43 award. So, Anu? Who else had a, come up here. So we've had several Malians who have had the Launch Award. So you can talk about that award. That's HB, it's also called the HBNU Award, which stands for Harvard University, Boston University, Northwestern University, University of New Mexico. It's the 4 schools. Yeah. Okay. There. We also have some awards some of you received called Catalyzer Awards. Now, these are awards from Northwestern University internal money. And those are $25,000 for 1 year. That's the whole project though. And you have to work with a Northwestern faculty member. You have it out. Amudu has, Amudu, why don't you come over here? And then we also have awards from our CPAN award. So it's a sister award to this. And that it's an award to promote point-of-care research technologies, like at the engineering school here, and at the medical school. And you can talk about that because you got one. So those are $100,000 for a 1-year project to develop something in particular. Okay, and it has to have something to do with HIV. Anything. So that includes tuberculosis. So it ties in very well with the B-Next-Gen project. So that's all our awards. And so I have all the speakers up here. Yeah. You want to add anything or? No. Okay, you're fine. Okay.
Maybe I have to join them.
Yeah, you should join them. Okay. So Geneva Davital is on the line here. Geneva, can you hear us?
Yes, Prof. Welcome, ma'am.
All right, great. So I think what we'll do is let's start with the launch award for. Well, sorry, I thought it was a Sapporo was going to go. But anyway, the launch award is this 1-year award. It's managed by Harvard University, but all 4 universities, including Northwestern, are part of that. And so, if that microphone works there, I'd like you to tell us about how you heard about the award, how it worked for you, and, you know, if you thought it was beneficial. Tell us about it, okay? We'd rather hear it in your words.
Can you all hear me? Hi everyone. My name is Tuberculose. And I am actually a U.S. Program Fellow, so I am
resident in the US, but I am a Fogarty HBNU awardee. I initially heard about the award last year. So actually, initially I had a very small grant of like $3,000. I think it was also career development and also to support another D43 program here in Mali. So I came in Mali towards June of 2023 to teach. And that's when I heard from my mentor that there's an HBNU award that would allow me to work in Mali for 1 year. So already knowing that, I started building connections with the faculty here because I was very much interested in continuing my doctoral work here in Mali. So it was from that I applied to the HBNU. I think being here because of the small grant really helped, I think, my chances with the award because I had built in, like I mentioned, rapport and connections with the faculty, and they really helped me make sure that my project was feasible. So that's just how I approached it.
How did it go with the research project that you were working on?
Yeah, so I'm actually working on it right now. So my project focuses on the intersection of mental health, sleep, and climate change. The process has been interesting. I think, like Dr. Hall mentioned, I had some issues with the IRB in the beginning, but I'm almost done. And I think as early career researchers, we always tend to be a little bit more ambitious rather than realistic. So I ended up, I think, applying for more than I can chew, but I'm trying to complete as much as I can. That's just something to keep in mind that I've learned through the HBNU and through some other grants that I'm currently working on applying to, is always have a balance between being ambitious, being novel, and also being feasible and realistic in what we're applying for.
Great.
Yeah.
You had one also, right?
Yes. I'm Dr. Anu Muisomoro. I had as well the HBNU fellowship grant, and I applied for this grant while I was in South Africa. I finished with my PhD, and I was trying to find out a way to return back home. And I was doing my postdoctoral fellowship there, but for me to be integrated in Mali, it will be better for me to come with some grant. So, and through some of my collaborators, my mentors, I hear about the HBNU, and I said that, okay, take that opportunity to apply for the grants. Maybe that will be the grant that will bring you back home. And I had the chance and I applied for it, and I got the grant. And just to remind that.
When year did you do your
I did in 2020. 2020. I was awarded the grant in 2020. I returned end of 2019, and I got the grant in 2020. And I'm the second fellow who got that grant in Mali. And before me, it was, if I can recall, Prem Majagite, who was the first who won that grant, and I'm the second in Mali.
What exactly was the topic?
Yeah, I work on TB and microbiome to find out the impact of microbiome on TB and HIV infection.
Yeah, so the topics that are open in this particular grant are HIV related, but also not HIV related. It can be mental health related, it can be infection related, diagnostics, there's many things. You have to actually go to the website of the HBNU program, and they'll tell you all the areas of that they're covering. There are 5 other networks of, like the HBNU network, and they have different areas of research interest. So if it doesn't work for the HBNU one, you can look at one of the other networks. So it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, it was a great opportunity, and from there I'm still in grant applications and working with collaborators, joint grants and others.
And then, so that's a 1-year program, but I like how you said it's the networks.
Yeah.
You really in 1 year get to get involved in other research networks and really meet people that can help you in the future. Because then from that type of award, which is just 1 year, goes to the 5-year career award, awards that Geneva, Fofana, and Davital have. We'll start, Geneva Davital had the first one.
The last one.
In Mali.
We have one last. You have the
For-
last one.
Oh, okay, we got three.
for
Okay.
HBNU.
You're the third. Anyway, Geneva, let's start with you, Geneva, because you had the first one, I think.
Afternoon, everybody. My name is Mohamed Touboufouki. I'm currently a SBNB fellow as a EJ2, so I'm doing my experimental under the supervision of Professor Bassirou and Salotu in Mali and Professor Chad to US. So I learned about this opportunity to my colleague here, Dr. Arnaud and just also who are applying for me. I think this is a good opportunity for our young and researchers. So my research area is TB HIV. So my topic is diagnosis about TB tuberculosis diagnosis among children in Mali using top score technique.
Oh, great. Great. Sorry, I went out of order. So now we go into the cables. Okay, so Geneva Davital, you hear me?
Yes, Prof, I can hear you well.
Okay, you were the first one in the country to get one of these awards. These are the 5-year awards. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience and where you are now with that award?
Okay, thank you so much. Hi everyone. So as Rob mentioned, I was fortunate to be the first K awardee in Mali, and I also think the first one in a Francophone country. For me, it was really, like they said, meeting the right person at the right time, because I was just getting back home in Mali after 8 years spent in the US, and I was wondering what I can do in Mali, since most of my work in the US was on animal studies. And after meeting with Rob, he suggested to apply for a K award, and I didn't know what the K was, and he started to explain. But I told him how I can do this, because I didn't have any preliminary data to start with. And then he provided the seed grant to me, which was $50,000 to start something. And he sent me to Hopkins to get some preliminary data, which we use to write the K. And also, right after his return to Chicago, he connected me to Jen, which I call my mom in science. And we started working. At that time, I had very little experience in grant writing, so Rob sent me to Chicago to work with Jen, and we submitted for the first time. It didn't go through. We did the second time. The score was good, but we didn't have support for the money. And then we have to reapply for the third time, and that was a good one. And the work is on sex differences and tuberculosis. So for some who are not in the TB field, the study is based on the epidemiological observation of an excess of cases in male with tuberculosis compared to female, and we would like to know why there is such a male bias in tuberculosis burden around the world, but also treatment outcome. So it has been 5 years of hard work, despite being in Mali, experiencing conflicts, border closure, but also COVID-19. But I have a very strong mentoring team, starting with Rob, Jen, but also the Hopkins folks. And this year will be my last year as a K awardee. I have applied for several grants. Some were not, most of them were not funded, but I will continue to apply. I have currently 2 pendings and more experiments and data analysis to do. But it was really a great experience and training opportunity for someone like me. And it has helped me to stay in Mali and do what I love, which is the science. And I am very grateful to Rob and Jen and all folks at Northwestern. Thank you.
Yeah, Geneva, you did a really remarkable job, and it wasn't easy getting that off the ground.
You agree?
Yeah, at that time, people did not believe sex difference matter. So, but I think now it is a big topic and there is a lot to explore. Yeah.
Yeah, she really had a rough go because the people weren't buying into the whole concept of sex hormones and TB and outcomes and you know, a lot of people talk all the time, oh, women's health and women, there's a difference with the women and men and everything, but then they don't fund the work. They don't fund the training. So I congratulate you for being so persistent. And when she didn't get funded the first time, we got a little award to help her get some more data. And she got that data and applied again, and it didn't get even the second time. I was really angry because I was on the committee that was picking them, although they don't let me vote. But anyway, I said, you just keep talking about this, and you don't do anything. And she applied the third time. We had plenty of data that time, and she's funded, and it's really great. And now she's off to an independent career, getting grants on her own. And congratulations, Geneva. All right, now the other Geneva, Geneva Fofana. Actually, she got every kind of award we have here. She had a Catalyzer Award, she had a HBNU Award, and you got a K Award. Wow. You can do that.
So I'm Geneva Fofana, I'm PharmD and PhD and virologist. I just like to mention this was during one of those meetings, I took confidence to apply for different grants like HBNU, Catalyzer, and also K project. And I really also lucky to meet some of my mentors who some are here in the room, Mahmoudou, Al-Mustafa, and also Jen, who really helped me for the rating, because as she mentioned during her talk, writing a grant can take time. So we need to really take time to anticipate some different writing. So for us, I think we take 6 or 7 months to write the K project. So, but for the first time, I think I had many looking to get it on the first time for a K project. So the HBNU, I canceled my HBNU because it was for the same time, because we applied to 2020. And as HBNU was for 1 year and the K was for 5 years. So I chose particularly the K for retreat. It was really a great thing for me because my projects focused on HBV. It was, I think, 5 or 7 times I thought to have a grant about hepatitis B. And this grant was an opportunity for me to really play, I think, a great role on HBV understanding in our context in Mali here, because we study many of among different populations like pregnant women, children, and etc. My focus for K33 was to develop an access tool to quantify HIV and HBV genome, because access to viral load is really challenging in Africa and particularly in Mali. Even for HIV, the viral load is free, but for HBV, we have maybe, I think, no data, and it is really expensive also to have some tool to detect this virus. And we are in one of the countries with endemic of HBV. So for me, it was a great opportunity to work on this virus, which I really like, and I will think continue to explore for the other grants for this topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we've known each other for quite a while. I've been coming here for over 20 years. And when we first met, Geneva didn't speak any English, right? But we can do it. Unfortunately, the money's in English. That's just the way it goes. So you've got to get at least basic English to apply for these grants. We had a big problem getting people to come to the United States to get a master's degree or PhD because the requirement for English is too high. But we've given up on that approach, and now we're doing all the training in Africa, some in France, and it works out fine. And it's been great for you, and you've done a fantastic job. Congratulations. All right, let's move on to the next kind of grant, Mamudu. You're the king of the catalyzer grants. He's very famous. And so tell us about that and what you've done with them and how it's led to other things.
Yeah, thanks. So I am also supposed to talk about the global challenge innovation.
You can talk about both.
Yeah, we talk about both. So about catalyzer. For me, catalyzer have been really, first of all, is Northwestern Intel Nord grant is a 25K for a small project. So it's relatively easier for us to get compared to NIS or other sponsors. So if we have new ideas, usually we start there. So we also use it during COVID for many projects. For COVID, for me, when COVID started, everybody was confused, didn't know what to do. Everybody wanted to do something. And fortunately, we had asked the researcher, the catalyzer, I think we got two with Al Mustafa, to get something started. But on the other projects, for example, when I started my position at Northwestern, it was a research faculty. I started my position with no funding. I had my salary covered by Rob. Rob said, okay, we pay your salary and the rest, find out what you can do. So I was working with Sally Mokfal, and I remember, and I tell that to people, my first day at my job, I started writing grants because I needed money. And it was a catalyzer on non-tuberculose mycobacteria. And that one was funded. And then we got those data to write an RO3, an RO3 grant that was also funded. We're still working on the project to develop a point of care TB-assay, and I know Sally also is continuing this project. So the goal for us is to really get an RO1. So we have actually an RO1 to be reviewed tomorrow, 27. So I can say it's the continuation, part of. No, what you're doing is a study section. So classically, we use this grant to start new ideas. As I said, it's relatively easy to get. I will give you a few examples. As he said, I got many of them. And all the time, I try to do my best when I start something to push it as far as possible. So that's the key. It's 25K. Everybody knows money is not easy to get money. So we are fortunate enough to get this opportunity. We should not waste it. We only use it. I only use it when I know I have an idea that I can push for up to a bigger funding. So, as an example, lung cancer is something we started. We started last year with no data, and we want to write an R1. With NIH, especially at R level, preliminary data is the key, because all your competitors will have preliminary data. If you don't have preliminary data, you're wasting your time. Most of the application will have half of the data of their project already. That's become the game for those who don't know. You get one grant, even with R1 now, we use one part of the money to start new idea, new project, having preliminary data so that you're preparing already the next grant. You have preliminary data for the next grant. So for somebody who don't have R01 yet, you apply for catalyzer. Another example is bladder cancer that we presented on yesterday. That's a new line of research we are also starting in Mali. We don't have preliminary data. We have a solution, it's catalyzer, and that is pending review. We did not get that yet, but I'm advocating because Rob is here. He's the one who will approve it. So, so he knows how much it will be important to get this funding now. So just a last example I want to mention is we want to build a bridge between Mali and Burkina Faso as francophones on cancer research, on breast cancer, implementation science area. So we have an U01 in Mali now for cervical cancer in Bamako, Segu, and in Nigeria. So we want to add more cancer together to do at least 2 femoral cancers. So breast cancer, cervical cancer, using mobile clinic. We think we can have all the services together. And again, it's a new idea. We apply for a catalyzer, and Mali have some data, but Burkina Faso has a new collaborator in this field. We thought that it would be interesting to generate from data. This is something to apply with Jane Hall in June, but if we are lucky to be funded, Samira Wedrago, if she's here, she already started with the work. If we have a catalyzer or no, we are going for this, and we will generate some data. But if we get the funding, it will be a big help, and we will have much better preliminary data to be competitive.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point. You know, Mali is a geographically large country, but you don't really have that many people in it, about 20 million, right? So in these bigger network grants, you got to work with your partners in Senegal, Burkina Faso, Guinea, wherever you have some partners. This is going to be helpful because a lot of these bigger awards, you have to have partners. And of course, it's a lot easier in the region. Let's talk about move to the last one now is Al Mustafa Mego. Also, I met him 20 years ago and when he was very young. And you're still young, you're always going to be younger than me. And he also didn't speak a word of English. Took him to Nigeria. You picked up English very quickly. Congratulations. But we have this grant called CFAN. And it's related to this B-Next-Gen grant because it's about point-of-care technologies, developing point-of-care technologies. And so that award actually gives sub-awards. It's pretty big, $100,000 per year. So tell us about that.
Thank you, Rob. So, as you said, so I'm fortunate to be part of CFAN. CFAN is a point-of-care technology. So it's a grant to promote point-of-care technology for use for HIV and associated infection like over infection, HPV, and others. As part of this grant, CFAN is making a solicitation each year and give some awards from the institution part of the consortium. And we are many countries, I think it's 5 countries.